Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Sleepy Biologist. Before we dive into today's question, what if you never slept again? Let me know in the comments where in the world you're watching from. I love seeing how far the sleepy science spreads. Alright, let's stay awake and curious. Here's what really happens when sleep disappears from your life. Imagine this. You decide not to sleep tonight. Maybe you're trying to meet a deadline, pull an all-nighter for fun, or you're just wondering what would happen. At first, you don't feel too bad. Your body runs on adrenaline and leftover energy reserves. You might even feel a bit wired, like you've had one too many cups of coffee. But beneath the surface, your brain is already sounding alarms. Sleep isn't just rest, it's biological maintenance. And the longer you go without it, the more things start to break down. After about 16 to 18 hours of wakefulness, your reaction time slows. Concentration fades. Your ability to form new memories is already declining. You might not notice it immediately, but your brain does. It begins to accumulate metabolic waste, a kind of chemical garbage that's usually cleared out during sleep. Without sleep, that garbage piles up, interfering with normal brain functions like attention, learning, and decision-making. As you push through the first day, your body keeps trying to balance things. Hormones like cortisol and insulin start acting out of rhythm. Your body temperature regulation begins to slip. You might feel colder or hotter than usual. Your coordination is subtly off. You'll drop things more often, make clumsy mistakes, maybe misread simple signs. You're now operating at a cognitive level comparable to someone who's legally drunk. But let's say you power through and keep going. No naps, no micro-sleeps, just wakefulness. By the 24-hour mark, your amygdala, the emotional center of your brain, becomes hyperactive. That means you're more likely to overreact to small things. Your brain becomes worse at interpreting emotions, both in yourself and others. A neutral face might look angry. A casual comment might feel like an insult. Your mood becomes fragile. Your patience disappears, and you're prone to anxiety or even mild paranoia. Now think about this. Evolution has hardwired every species on Earth to sleep in some form. Sharks, elephants, ants, even jellyfish. Yes, jellyfish have sleep-like cycles. So when we deny our biology that cycle, we're going against millions of years of evolutionary programming. It's like trying to run your car without ever turning off the engine or stopping for fuel. Eventually, the system overheats. And yet, the effects of sleep loss aren't just neurological. Your immune system begins to falter. Natural killer cells, the ones responsible for targeting viruses and even some cancer cells, drop dramatically in just one night of lost sleep. Your gut health begins to suffer. Your blood sugar spikes more easily, and your muscles recover more slowly. Basically, every part of your body starts falling behind on maintenance. If you're still awake beyond 24 hours, your brain starts forcing in moments of micro-sleep. These are tiny blackouts lasting a fraction of a second to several seconds, and you won't even notice them happening. It's not a choice. It's a survival reflex. Your brain is starting to shut down sections of itself momentarily to preserve core functions. Imagine driving, and suddenly your eyes close for 2 seconds without warning. That's microsleep, and it's extremely dangerous. The scary part is that people can still look relatively normal during this phase. You could hold a conversation, walk around, maybe even do basic tasks. But your higher-level cognitive functions, critical thinking, moral judgment, memory recall, are in steep decline. The longer you stay awake, the more you become a version of yourself who is unstable, disoriented, and emotionally unpredictable. The illusion of being fine is often the most dangerous part. You tell yourself you can push through it, maybe with caffeine or a cold shower, but those only mask the symptoms temporarily. They don't reverse the damage. Even one night without sleep can impair you more than being drunk. Imagine operating heavy machinery in that state, or making a major life decision. And it only gets worse from here. By the time you reach your second full day without sleep, that's about 36 to 48 hours awake. The changes in your body and brain aren't just subtle anymore. They're loud, disruptive, and nearly impossible to ignore. You're no longer just tired. You're starting to feel like a different person entirely. Your brain, which has been struggling to keep you alert for the past 24 hours, begins to show signs of severe disruption. Electrical activity becomes erratic. Neural communication slows down, particularly in the frontal and parietal lobes, areas responsible for logic, planning, decision-making, and spatial awareness. Tasks that normally take seconds now feel confusing or even overwhelming. You might find yourself forgetting what you were saying mid-sentence, or staring at something simple, like a toothbrush or a phone, and having no idea what you were about to do with it. At this stage, your ability to concentrate is practically gone. Reading a sentence becomes a mental workout. Your eyes may be open, but your attention flickers like a dying light bulb. You start losing time, staring off into space without realizing minutes have passed. You walk into a room and forget why you're there. You lose objects in your own hands. It's like your brain is glitching in real time. And that's just the start. Around 36 hours of wakefulness, your brain's prefrontal cortex begins to shut down non-essential processing. It's prioritizing energy for the most basic survival functions. You become emotionally volatile. Small inconveniences feel catastrophic. You might feel waves of irrational anger, sudden sadness, or pure confusion. People around you may notice you're not acting like yourself. You're more irritable, more distant, more erratic. Your body, meanwhile, is going through its own meltdown. Cortisol levels, your main stress hormone, are elevated. Your heart rate may fluctuate without warning. Your blood pressure rises. Digestion slows down, causing nausea or stomach pain. Your muscles feel heavy, like you're wading through thick air. You may develop tremors or tics, especially in your hands and jaw. Your eyes sting. Your vision blurs. Some people even report experiencing double vision or tunnel vision. Everything feels like it's happening slightly too fast or slightly too slow, as if the world's FPS has dropped. And then there's the beginning of hallucinations. Not full-blown visions, not yet, but shadows moving in your peripheral vision, objects appearing to shimmer or breathe, light sources seeming too bright, too harsh. You might see flashes of color or think you hear a voice whispering just out of earshot. These are early signs of your brain starting to misfire. It's interpreting random signals as real information because the filters that normally sort reality from noise are breaking down. Your internal clock, also known as your circadian rhythm, is completely misaligned. Your body doesn't know what time it is. It's dark outside, but you feel wired. Then suddenly, it's daylight, and your body thinks it should be asleep. Melatonin production becomes chaotic. Hormones surge at the wrong times. Appetite signals are disrupted. Some people feel ravenous, while others can't eat at all. But digestion is impaired either way. You're now functioning with the metabolic efficiency of someone in a state of illness. The immune system is falling apart. Inflammation increases. Cytokine levels, which are normally used to fight infections, spike inappropriately, creating stress and wear on the body. Healing slows down. If you had a small cut or were fighting off a cold, you'll notice things aren't improving. They're getting worse. By hour 48, your brain begins to force more frequent and longer periods of microsleep. These are no longer tiny blips. They can last several seconds, and you won't notice them happening. You might be walking, standing, or even talking when your brain just turns off for a moment. These blackouts are dangerous. People have crashed cars, dropped infants, or injured themselves in kitchens or on staircases because of involuntary microsleeps. You are, in every practical sense, no longer safe to function in public or private life. Your mood becomes completely unpredictable. Some people become euphoric, laughing for no reason. Others become deeply paranoid. You might think people are talking about you. You might misinterpret facial expressions. You start to distrust your own thoughts, but you're too far gone to fix it. This is where the early signs of psychosis can start to show. It's important to remember that at this stage, you might still be insisting that you're fine. That's the deception of sleep deprivation. It erodes self-awareness. The worse it gets, the less you recognize it. Your brain can no longer monitor itself effectively. You believe you're awake and functioning, but you're walking through a slow-motion cognitive collapse. In clinical settings, this stage is sometimes referred to as acute sleep deprivation, and it's comparable to certain stages of traumatic brain injury in terms of cognitive performance. And yet many people have pushed themselves to this point. Night shift workers, medical interns, soldiers, new parents, and extreme gamers, to name just a few. By now, you're living in a surreal mental landscape. Reality doesn't feel quite solid. Time moves strangely. Your body feels alien, not quite under your control. You may begin to question whether you're dreaming or awake. Some people begin to develop visual distortions, like patterns on walls that appear to move or faces that subtly change. You may see lights where there are none, or hear music in the silence. These aren't dreams. They're hallucinations caused by a brain under extreme pressure. And still, some part of you might be trying to push forward. Just a few more hours, one more cup of coffee, a cold shower. But those tricks stopped working long ago. Your body has one goal now: to get you to sleep by any means necessary. And if you don't let it, it will start taking it from you, piece by piece, whether you want it to or not. And this is only day 2. By the time you've been awake for 72 hours, 3 full days, your brain is no longer functioning in any recognizable version of normal. You're not just tired, you're cognitively unraveling. Basic tasks now feel impossible. Time becomes meaningless, and the distinction between what's real and what's imagined starts to blur completely. At this point, the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for rational thought, impulse control, and decision-making, has almost completely shut down. Your brain is now running on primitive survival circuits. You might be able to walk, talk, even mimic short conversations, but you're not really there. You've become reactive rather than reflective. It's not just that you're making poor decisions. It's that your brain can't recognize consequences at all. You may say things you'd never say, do things you'd never normally do. You lose your filter, your emotional balance, your ability to assess risk. You're running on neural fumes. The lines between dream and waking life begin to dissolve. Full-blown hallucinations aren't just possible now, they're likely. People in this state have reported seeing insects crawling on their skin, shadowy figures in corners, or faces forming in patterns on walls. Others hear voices that aren't there, or music playing from inside the silence. These aren't vague impressions anymore. They're vivid, sustained, and convincing. Your brain, starving for rest, begins to manufacture stimulation to fill in the blanks. It's like dreaming while awake, except you can't wake up from it. In some cases, the hallucinations begin to speak. You may hear your name whispered. You might hear a conversation happening behind you. You may believe people are watching you, following you, or conspiring against you. This isn't a conscious decision. The brain, deprived of sleep, loses its ability to regulate the thalamus, the relay station for sensory information. Without that filter, irrelevant signals get through. You start misinterpreting normal stimuli. A breeze becomes a whisper. A reflection becomes a person. Your brain is now lying to you, and you believe it. And then there's paranoia. Your ability to trust the world begins to degrade. You might think your phone is being tracked. You might believe strangers are staring at you, or that your family is hiding something from you. This isn't just anxiety. It's a breakdown in the default mode network, a brain system that helps maintain a consistent sense of self. Without sleep, that network weakens. You may begin to dissociate, to feel like you're watching yourself from the outside, or that the world around you isn't quite real. Your thoughts may become obsessive, looping, fragmented. You might fixate on a sentence, a shape, a sound, unable to let go of it. Your body, meanwhile, is in a constant state of stress. Cortisol is still surging. Your heart is working overtime. You may be sweating even in a cool room. Your immune system is so compromised that you're now more vulnerable to infection, inflammation, even minor injury. Your digestive system can't keep up. Nausea becomes more common. Some people vomit. Others experience diarrhea or stomach cramping. Your hands might shake. Your vision could blur in and out. You may lose your balance without warning. Even blinking feels delayed, like the signal has to travel further than usual. And then comes the disconnection. You might start speaking incoherently without realizing it, saying random words, slurring, repeating phrases, laughing at things no one else sees, crying suddenly. Some people fall into silence entirely, staring blankly, locked inside their own thoughts. This is known as hypnagogic psychosis, a sleep-deprived brain mimicking the symptoms of schizophrenia. It is as close to madness as most people will ever come. And the longer you stay awake, the more the boundary between consciousness and delusion begins to melt. By now, your brain is doing everything it can to shut you down. Your thalamus, hippocampus, and brainstem are all compromised. Critical neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin are imbalanced. Your emotional stability is non-existent. You may feel deeply afraid, not of something specific, but of everything, of your own thoughts, of the room you're in, of what might happen next. Panic attacks become more likely. Emotional breakdowns, mental paralysis. You may try to sleep at this point and find that you can't. Insomnia paradoxically becomes more likely the longer you stay awake, because your internal rhythms are broken. Even if you close your eyes, your body might not recognize that it's time to sleep. You're so overstimulated, so chemically out of balance, that true rest feels out of reach. Some people begin to experience out-of-body sensations, a floating feeling, a sense of detachment, or the belief that they've died and are watching from above. Others may fall into brief, dreamlike trance states without even lying down. These are known as sleep attacks, and they're essentially involuntary crashes. your brain simply takes over and puts you down, whether you want it to or not. It's no longer asking for sleep, it's demanding it. And through all this, your sense of identity starts to erode. You forget how long you've been awake. You may forget what day it is. You might not recognize the version of yourself that's now walking around. Irritable, unstable, barely aware. You feel hollow, detached, numb. Your sense of self, which is constructed daily through memory, emotion, and reflection, is now fragmented. You're more creature than person, functioning but not living. And still, even here, some people try to push through, motivated by deadlines, by pride, by challenge. But they're not really in control anymore. The brain has its own timeline. And if you continue to resist it, it will shut you down forcibly, through unconsciousness, through hallucination, or in extreme cases, through complete psychological collapse. This is the cost of denying sleep, not just fatigue, but the disintegration of everything that makes you you. And it's only with real, uninterrupted sleep that the brain can begin the slow, careful process of rebuilding. Let me know if you'd like to continue with the next stage, the critical biological functions that collapse when sleep loss continues beyond 72 hours, or how recovery sleep actually works when you finally give in. We tend to think of sleep as something passive, a kind of shutdown, like turning off the lights at night or putting your phone on silent. But biologically, sleep isn't a pause. It's an active, dynamic, and incredibly complex process that is as essential to life as breathing, eating, and drinking water. It's not a luxury. It's not downtime. It's not wasted hours. It is, quite literally, maintenance for your existence. To understand why we need sleep, we have to stop thinking of it as optional and start thinking of it as fundamental. Every organism on Earth with a nervous system sleeps in some form, from fruit flies to elephants, from migrating birds to humans. Even animals in high-risk environments, prey animals, animals constantly on the move, or those living in hostile, unpredictable climates, still sleep. Not because it's convenient, but because the cost of not sleeping is always higher than the risk of sleeping. Sleep is the body's reset button, but not in the vague rest and recharge way we often hear. It's a system-wide recalibration. When we fall asleep, the brain doesn't just turn off. It enters structured, repeating cycles, shifting through distinct phases, each one serving a different biological purpose. There's light sleep, deep sleep, and REM, rapid eye movement sleep. Each phase plays a role in repairing, cleaning, reinforcing, and optimizing your body and brain. In deep sleep, also known as slow-wave sleep, your brain produces large, synchronized waves that help flush out toxic waste products. One of the most important of these is beta amyloid, a sticky protein fragment associated with Alzheimer's disease. During the day, this waste builds up in your brain like exhaust in an engine. During deep sleep, the brain's glymphatic system kicks in, a fluid-based cleaning system that clears out these toxins, reducing the long-term risk of cognitive decline. It's like your brain's own personal janitor, and it only shows up when you're deeply asleep. At the same time, your body is hard at work. During deep sleep, your pituitary gland releases growth hormone, which stimulates tissue repair and muscle regeneration. Your immune system becomes more active and efficient. It begins scanning for invaders, viruses, bacteria, damaged cells, and begins making strategic adjustments. Sleep isn't just when you fight off infections, it's when your body learns how to fight them better next time. Then there's REM sleep, where things get even stranger. This is when dreams occur, not abstract thoughts, but vivid sensory experiences created by your mind, while your body is paralyzed to prevent you from acting them out. During REM, your brain rehearses emotional memories. It processes stress, fear, pleasure, and trauma. It takes the raw footage of your day and files it away, prioritizing some memories and discarding others. This is why people who are sleep deprived often feel emotionally unstable, even if they can't quite say why. It's because REM sleep is where your emotional balance is fine-tuned. Sleep is also crucial for memory consolidation. Learning something new, whether it's a language, a physical skill, or just remembering a conversation, that information doesn't fully stick until it's been processed during sleep. Your brain literally replays experiences during the night, stabilizing them into long-term memory. If you skip sleep, your ability to learn and retain information drops sharply. This is why studying all night and skipping sleep often does more harm than good. On a cellular level, sleep regulates everything from insulin sensitivity to appetite. Without sleep, your brain releases more ghrelin, the hunger hormone, and less leptin, the hormone that tells you you're full. That's why sleep-deprived people tend to crave high-calorie, high-sugar foods. It's not just willpower, it's biochemistry. Your body, confused and stressed, starts looking for quick energy. But it's a trap. The more poorly you sleep, the more likely you are to overeat and gain weight, even if your diet doesn't change. There's also your cardiovascular system. During sleep, especially deep sleep, your heart rate slows, your blood pressure drops, and your blood vessels repair themselves. This nightly rest mode allows your cardiovascular system to recover from the strain of daily life. Without sleep, your risk of hypertension, stroke, and heart disease increases significantly. Even one bad night of sleep can temporarily increase blood pressure and inflammation. Over time, the damage becomes cumulative. And perhaps most mysterious of all is how sleep shapes consciousness itself. Sleep is the boundary between being and non-being. It's the moment where you relinquish control, allow your body to sink into the unknown, and emerge, hours later, seemingly restored. But we don't fully understand why this works. We know what happens during sleep. We know what falls apart without it. But we still don't fully grasp the why. Why consciousness needs to go offline for the mind to remain functional. Why the brain can't do this cleaning and organizing while awake. Why sleep is so non-negotiable, even when survival seems to demand otherwise. Sleep is, in many ways, the ultimate biological paradox. We're at our most vulnerable when asleep, unable to defend ourselves, disconnected from our surroundings, immobile, and yet, every species with a brain has evolved to risk it. That alone tells us how powerful, how absolutely essential this state is. In modern life, though, we treat sleep like an obstacle, something to resist. We praise people who grind through the night, who skip rest to hustle harder. But the science is clear. Sleep is not a weakness. It's not a delay. It's a foundation. Without it, you are quite literally dismantling yourself from the inside out. With it, your body heals, your mind sharpens, your emotions stabilize, and your identity, the story of who you are, gets rewritten each night into something clearer and more complete. We sleep because our bodies demand it, because our minds can't survive without it, because every hour of rest is an investment in the next day's clarity, resilience, and creativity. And yet we rarely treat it with the reverence it deserves. Until it's gone, let me know if you'd like to continue into the next segment, perhaps exploring what happens to memory, learning, and emotional control when sleep is removed entirely. Memory is one of the most fundamental things that makes you who you are. It's not just a mental filing cabinet where you store facts and experiences. It's your identity, your learning, your intuition, your emotional context. Without memory, you don't just forget things. You start to lose the thread of your life. And one of the first and most devastating casualties of sleep deprivation is memory. It starts subtly. After a single night of poor sleep, or no sleep at all, you may notice difficulty remembering where you placed something. You might walk into a room and forget why you're there. You reread the same paragraph and realize nothing stuck. This isn't just a mild annoyance. It's a sign that the parts of your brain responsible for encoding and storing memories are starting to fall apart. The hippocampus, a seahorse-shaped structure deep within the brain, is central to the formation of new memories. Think of it as the brain's save button. When you learn something new during the day, it's the hippocampus that tags that experience and prepares it for long-term storage. But when you're sleep deprived, the hippocampus becomes sluggish, unstable, and unreliable. The result? Information just doesn't get stored. The record button is stuck. Even if you're awake, even if you think you're paying attention, the brain simply isn't encoding those moments. It's not just new memories that suffer. Sleep deprivation also weakens access to existing memories. You might feel like your mind is foggy, like names or dates are on the tip of your tongue, but unreachable. You might recall the general feeling of an event, but not the details. It's as if your mental library is still there, but the lights are off and the index cards are scattered across the floor. The more sleep you miss, the worse it gets. Memory begins to distort. You confuse the order of events. You forget whether something happened yesterday or a week ago. You might even invent details to fill in the gaps and not realize you're doing it. The brain abhors a vacuum, and when sleep deprived, it will generate plausible false memories to maintain a sense of continuity. This is how eyewitness testimonies can become dangerously unreliable after sleep loss. People genuinely believe in their own distorted memories because the brain has quietly rewritten the script. And then there's working memory, your brain's ability to hold on to information in real time, like a mental notepad. Working memory is critical for everything. Holding on to a phone number long enough to dial it, doing math in your head, following a conversation, reading instructions, making quick decisions. Without sleep, your working memory is one of the first systems to falter. You start losing track of steps, dropping the thread halfway through a task. Instructions become hard to follow. You might reread the same message multiple times and still not absorb its meaning. This is where tasks like driving, operating machinery, or even holding a basic conversation can become dangerous. You begin making mental errors, not just forgetting things, but acting on incorrect information. You mistake one person for another. You reply to the wrong email. You forget whether you turned the stove off. The consequences can range from embarrassing to catastrophic. Memory isn't just cognitive, it's emotional too. Your ability to regulate emotional memory also depends heavily on sleep. Normally, when something stressful happens during the day, your brain processes that memory during REM sleep. It trims away the emotional sharpness, keeping the memory but softening its impact. That's why you can wake up after a bad day and feel a little more grounded. It's not time that heals emotional wounds. It's sleep. Without it, your brain can't properly process trauma or stress. The result is a brain flooded with emotionally charged memories that don't fade or resolve. You become reactive, overwhelmed, easily triggered. Not because you're weak, but because your brain hasn't been able to clean the lens overnight. In long-term sleep deprivation, these memory issues can begin to resemble symptoms of neurological diseases. People may present with confusion, disorientation, even amnesia-like episodes. They forget where they are. They forget conversations that happened minutes earlier. In extreme cases, the ability to form any new memories can collapse entirely. This is called transient global amnesia, and it can happen to people who are profoundly sleep deprived. The brain simply gives up on trying to process new input. Everything becomes a blur. And yet, despite all this, people often insist they're fine, that they're just a little tired. But studies using brain scans and memory tests consistently show the same result. People who go even 24 to 48 hours without sleep drastically overestimate how well they're performing. They think they're functioning. They think they're remembering. But the data tells a different story. The hippocampus is barely online, and the prefrontal cortex is compensating with brute force, trying to fill in the gaps with guesswork. It doesn't work. Even after just one night of bad sleep, your memory performance on cognitive tasks can drop by up to 40%. That's not a minor impairment. That's the difference between success and failure on an exam. Between a safe landing and a fatal error in aviation. Between remembering your child's birthday and forgetting who called you this morning. But the good news, if there is any, is that memory can recover. Sleep isn't just about preventing decline, it's also how you rebuild. When you get deep, uninterrupted sleep, your brain goes into repair mode. It revisits memories that were poorly stored. It strengthens important connections. It clears out the clutter. In a way, your brain is backing up your mental hard drive every night. And if you deny it that chance, it starts running out of space. This is why sleep is so tightly linked to intelligence, creativity, and performance. It's not just about being rested. It's about being organized. Sleep is the difference between a cluttered desktop and a clean, focused workspace. Between a brain filled with fragmented noise and a mind sharp enough to solve problems, make connections, and recognize patterns. Memory isn't just about recalling facts. It's about stitching together the narrative of who you are. Every conversation, every lesson, every dream, every fear, every joy, all of it flows through the fragile, beautiful machinery of memory. And when you don't sleep, that machinery starts to crumble, not all at once, but piece by piece, like the lights going out in a building one floor at a time, until eventually, you forget what you were even trying to remember. Let me know if you'd like to expand the next section, the role of REM sleep, or how emotional regulation breaks down in its absence. There's something strange and almost magical that happens during certain stages of sleep. A phase where the body becomes still, the eyes begin to dart behind closed eyelids, and the brain lights up as if it's wide awake. This is REM sleep, or rapid eye movement sleep. And despite being one of the most studied phenomena in neuroscience, it remains, in many ways, one of the most mysterious. REM is the dreamscape. It's where stories are born in the mind, where impossible things happen, flying, talking animals, memories blending with fantasy. But it's not just a time for dreams. REM sleep is an essential part of human cognition, emotional regulation, and survival. It's not optional. You need it just as much as deep sleep, food, or oxygen. What makes REM sleep so unique is that during this phase, the brain becomes intensely active while the body remains almost completely paralyzed. This paralysis, called REM atonia, is your brain's way of protecting you. It disconnects your muscles from your motor commands, ensuring that you don't physically act out your dreams. Without this, people would thrash, run, or fight in their sleep, leading to injuries or worse. In fact, there's a real condition called REM sleep behavior disorder, where this paralysis fails. And people do act out their dreams, often violently and with no awareness. But paralysis is just the beginning. Internally, REM sleep is a neurological symphony. The brainstem fires up, the amygdala, the emotional center, becomes hyperactive, and waves of acetylcholine, a neurotransmitter linked to learning and plasticity, surge throughout the brain. These aren't random firings. During REM, your brain is reprocessing emotional experiences, consolidating complex memories, and solving problems that might have stumped you while awake. It's during REM sleep that emotional regulation really happens. Think of it like overnight therapy. When you experience something upsetting or stressful during the day, that emotional intensity doesn't just vanish. It lingers in your nervous system, stored in the limbic areas of your brain. During REM, the brain revisits those memories, but it does something remarkable. It replays them in the absence of the stress chemicals that accompanied them during waking life. That means you get a second look at the emotional event, but with the intensity turned down. The memory remains, but the emotional sting begins to soften. This is one of the reasons you can go to bed feeling raw and wake up feeling a little more grounded. You didn't forget the pain. Your brain just gave it a different context. This emotional function of REM is so vital that people who are deprived of REM sleep begin to show signs of severe mood instability, irritability, anxiety, emotional hypersensitivity, depression. It becomes harder to bounce back from small setbacks. You feel frayed, overwhelmed, unable to cope. This isn't a personality flaw. It's neurochemistry. Your brain has been denied its natural process of nightly emotional rebalancing. In experiments where people are woken up every time they enter REM sleep, even if they sleep through the night otherwise, the effects are dramatic. Within days, they become cognitively impaired, emotionally unstable, and in some cases, begin to hallucinate. That's how critical REM is. You can get enough hours of sleep and still feel like you haven't rested, because without REM, you haven't really slept. REM also plays a major role in creativity. That's not just a poetic idea, it's biologically true. During REM, your brain forms new connections between distant concepts. It explores non-linear paths. It tests out strange combinations of thoughts, imagery, and memories. It's why dreams are often surreal and symbolic. Your brain is experimenting. In this state, you're more likely to find creative solutions to problems, to connect the dots in ways that waking logic might resist. Artists, musicians, writers, and inventors often credit dreams, or the mental space just before or after sleep, with some of their most inspired ideas. That's not mystical. That's REM at work. But REM sleep doesn't arrive immediately. In a typical sleep cycle, it takes 90 minutes to reach the first REM phase, and early in the night, REM episodes are short, just a few minutes. As the night progresses, the REM phases become longer and more intense, often peaking in the early morning hours. That means if you cut your sleep short, say 6 hours instead of 8, you're not just losing time, you're disproportionately losing REM. You've truncated the very part of sleep your brain was building toward. You've missed the climax of the symphony, and the damage doesn't stay in your mind. Your physical health is deeply affected too. REM sleep is critical for certain types of motor memory. Skills that involve coordination, like playing piano, riding a bike, or typing. If you practice a new movement or skill during the day, but don't get enough REM sleep at night, you won't retain it. The practice literally doesn't stick. It's not just about muscle memory. It's about neural pathways being reinforced while you dream. REM also helps regulate appetite hormones, blood sugar balance, and even pain sensitivity. In some chronic pain patients, increasing REM sleep has been shown to reduce discomfort. In people with diabetes or metabolic issues, sleep studies have shown that reduced REM correlates with poorer insulin response and greater blood sugar fluctuations. Your body, in short, depends on dreams for balance, recovery, and control. When REM is suppressed, whether by sleep deprivation, alcohol, certain medications, or stress, your brain tries to compensate. It builds up what's known as REM pressure. And when you finally sleep again, your brain will dive more rapidly and more deeply into REM than usual. This is called REM rebound, and it's why, after several nights of poor or interrupted sleep, your dreams may feel unusually vivid, intense, or even disturbing. It's not random. It's your brain desperately trying to catch up on emotional and cognitive processing it couldn't do while you were awake. It's also important to remember that REM sleep, like so many aspects of biology, is sensitive. Caffeine, alcohol, and nicotine can suppress REM or delay its arrival. Blue light exposure from phones and screens can shift the timing of REM, pushing it further into the night or shortening it altogether. That's why sleep hygiene, dark rooms, consistent schedules, limited stimulation before bed matters so much. You're not just getting to sleep, you're preparing your brain to enter the most important dream state of your life. And yet, so often, we treat dreams like fluff, like nonsense. But from a biological standpoint, REM sleep is one of the most essential states your brain can enter. It repairs your emotions. It stabilizes your mood. It reinforces your identity. It fuels your creativity. It helps you learn, grow, adapt. It even helps you survive. To live without REM sleep is to exist in a world where emotions are raw, memories are unstable, concentration is fleeting, and the line between reality and dream begins to blur. And if that continues long enough, the consequences become permanent. Let me know if you'd like to continue with the next part. What happens when the brain starts slipping into microsleeps and how it tries to shut itself down, even against your will? There comes a moment, long after your body is tired, after your thoughts are tangled, after your emotions have become unpredictable, when your brain simply refuses to stay awake any longer. Not in the dramatic collapse we might imagine from sleep deprivation, but in tiny silent moments that slip past your awareness. These are microsleeps, and they are not a choice. Microsleeps are brief episodes, sometimes just a fraction of a second, sometimes 5 or even 10 seconds, where parts of your brain go completely offline. You are still awake, in the sense that your eyes are open. You might be standing or sitting, maybe even walking, but the lights are out upstairs. It's like a blackout inside your consciousness. The world keeps moving, but you're not there for it. They often happen without warning. You could be reading, driving, eating, talking, and suddenly, nothing. A glitch, a cut in the film. You blink, and you're in a slightly different moment. Maybe you dropped your phone. Maybe your sentence trailed off mid-thought and now you don't remember what you were saying. You check the clock and realize 30 seconds have passed and you have no idea what happened during them. These episodes are the brain's last-ditch emergency response to extreme sleep deprivation. Your neurons are so fatigued, so overloaded, that they begin to shut down in clusters, like rolling blackouts during a power shortage. They're not waiting for your permission. They're not asking if it's safe. Your brain has decided it needs to sleep, even if it has to do it in secret, a few seconds at a time. The scary part is that microsleeps can't be overcome with willpower. You can't push through them. You might think you're okay, just drowsy, just foggy. But the part of your brain responsible for self-awareness is often among the first to be affected. You lose the ability to recognize how impaired you actually are. That's why someone who's severely sleep-deprived may insist they're fine to drive, to work, to make decisions, even when they are minutes away from a serious, even fatal mistake. And that's the real danger. Microsleeps don't just happen while you're sitting at a desk or lying in bed. They happen behind the wheel, in hospital operating rooms, on military missions, during delicate tasks that require complete focus. There are countless tragic stories: car crashes, surgical errors, workplace accidents, where the root cause wasn't mechanical failure, but a brief lapse in consciousness, a microsleep. During these episodes, brainwaves temporarily resemble those of someone who is fully asleep, especially in the thalamus and cortex, which govern sensory input and decision-making. External stimuli, like sights, sounds, touch, continue, but the brain no longer interprets them. It's as if the sensory cables are still transmitting data, but no one is home to receive it. And it doesn't take long without sleep for these to start. Some people begin to experience microsleeps after just 24 hours of sleep deprivation. By 36 hours, they become more frequent. By 48 hours, they're almost guaranteed. By the third day without sleep, microsleeps can happen every few minutes. They grow longer, deeper, more dangerous. You may lose track of entire conversations. You might come to in a different room than you remember entering. You may start confusing dreams with memories, unsure what actually happened and what your brain filled in during a blackout. Microsleeps are also closely tied to what's called local sleep. This is a phenomenon where parts of the brain, rather than the entire system, begin to sleep independently. Your motor cortex might be awake, allowing you to move, but your frontal cortex, which handles logic and planning, might be asleep. The result is action without insight. You might be physically functioning, but mentally absent. Imagine trying to cook dinner. Your hands are chopping vegetables. You think you're following the recipe, but you look down and realize you've put salt in the boiling water 4 times. You've left the burner on under an empty pan. You've forgotten what you were making entirely. You walk into another room to get something and forget why you're there. It's not just clumsiness or fatigue. It's that parts of your brain have quite literally turned off, and you didn't notice. In extreme cases, people have driven for miles during microsleep states. Their eyes were open, their hands were on the wheel, but the brain had checked out. No memory of the drive, no awareness of red lights or other cars, just gaps, blackouts. And then, suddenly, they're awake again. Sometimes in the middle of an accident, sometimes just pulled over with no idea how they got there. It's as if the body becomes an autopilot vessel. But there's no pilot left. You might think caffeine can help, and to an extent it can. But stimulants don't reverse sleep deprivation. They only mask the symptoms. They increase alertness temporarily, but they don't restore cognitive function, memory, or emotional regulation. Worse, when the caffeine wears off, the crash is deeper, and microsleeps may strike harder with less warning. It's like propping up a crumbling bridge with toothpicks. As sleep deprivation continues, microsleeps also begin to blend with hallucinations. The difference between dreams and waking life starts to disappear. You may open your eyes and see something that isn't there. Hear a voice. Smell something strange. You may become unsure whether you were just asleep or awake a moment ago. You may not be able to tell the difference between something you imagined and something that really happened. Time becomes disjointed. Reality feels less reliable. This is the brain on the edge, trying to survive without the one thing it needs most. Microsleeps are the final warning signs before total collapse, before the body takes over completely, before the system forces a shutdown. If you ignore them, if you keep pushing past them, you're walking toward the edge of a cliff. And every time your eyes close, you're one step closer to falling. You don't need to pass out to be in danger. All it takes is 5 seconds of lost awareness at the wrong time, in the wrong place, and everything changes. And the terrifying truth is that you may never even realize it's happening. Let me know if you'd like to continue into what happens next. The mood disorders, hallucinations, and eventual breakdown of emotional stability as sleep loss pushes you further away from reality. As the hours stretch into days without sleep, the brain's fragile balance begins to unravel, and the steady rhythm of your emotions turns into a turbulent storm. What starts as simple irritability escalates into a deep, unsettling emotional chaos. You may find yourself swinging unpredictably between feelings of despair, anxiety, anger, and numbness. These aren't just mood swings. They're the brain's desperate attempt to cope with a profound lack of restoration. When you're well rested, your brain can regulate emotions, buffering stress, calming fear, and helping you process daily challenges. Without sleep, those control systems begin to falter. At the core of this emotional breakdown is the amygdala, a tiny, almond-shaped structure buried deep in the brain. The amygdala is your emotional alarm bell. It scans the environment for threats and signals danger. When sleep deprived, the amygdala becomes hyperactive, firing wildly, even in response to minor or neutral stimuli. A passing comment might feel like a personal attack. A small setback might feel overwhelming. You become hypersensitive to stressors, caught in a loop where your brain amplifies emotional reactions instead of calming them. Meanwhile, the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for reasoning, judgment, and impulse control, starts to lose its grip. It's as if the brakes on your emotional roller coaster have failed. The prefrontal cortex can no longer regulate the amygdala's overreaction. This imbalance leaves you vulnerable, raw, and reactive. Simple frustrations turn into explosive anger. Sadness deepens into despair. Anxiety spirals into panic. You may find yourself crying for no clear reason or snapping at loved ones unexpectedly. As the days drag on, hallucinations may begin to appear. These aren't the fanciful, colourful dreams of REM sleep, but often disturbing, fragmented perceptions intruding into waking consciousness. You might hear whispers, see shadows moving at the edge of your vision, or feel phantom touches. The boundary between reality and imagination becomes blurred. These hallucinations can be frightening and disorienting, contributing to paranoia and confusion. They arise because the brain, deprived of its normal restorative processes, starts misfiring. Sensory signals become jumbled, and the brain attempts to fill gaps in perception with false data. Sleep deprivation also impairs your ability to process and interpret social cues. Facial expressions, tone of voice, and body language become harder to read accurately. This social blindness can lead to misunderstandings, isolation, and feelings of loneliness. You might misinterpret a smile as sarcasm or a neutral comment as criticism. This fuels anxiety and mistrust, further deepening emotional distress. Decision-making becomes impaired too. With your emotional regulation compromised, your choices may become impulsive, reckless, or self-destructive. You might seek comfort in unhealthy behaviors, overeating, substance use, or withdrawal. Your motivation plummets, and even simple tasks feel overwhelming. Fatigue and emotional distress feed into each other in a vicious cycle that becomes harder to break the longer you go without sleep. One of the most terrifying aspects of this emotional collapse is how it isolates you. You may want to reach out for help, but find it difficult to articulate what you're feeling or to connect with others. Your loved ones may not understand the severity of your condition, and you may feel ashamed or embarrassed by your unpredictable mood or hallucinations. This isolation only amplifies the sense of despair. In extreme cases, prolonged sleep deprivation can trigger symptoms resembling psychosis. Delusions, fixed false beliefs, may develop. You might become convinced of conspiracies, believe people are watching you, or feel detached from your own body. This is the brain's last defense mechanism, a desperate attempt to escape the overwhelming confusion and emotional pain. Psychiatric symptoms may emerge that require immediate intervention. Yet, even in this state, the brain desperately tries to maintain homeostasis. Neurochemical imbalances occur. Levels of serotonin, dopamine, and other neurotransmitters essential for mood and cognition fluctuate wildly. These chemical storms further destabilize your emotional state and cognitive function. But there is hope. Sleep is the natural healer of the mind. Even after days of deprivation, recovery sleep, especially the return of REM and deep sleep phases, can help restore emotional balance. Memories of hallucinations fade, mood stabilizes, and cognitive clarity returns. The brain's plasticity allows it to bounce back, given enough time and proper rest. Understanding this process highlights why prioritizing sleep isn't just about avoiding tiredness. It's about preserving your emotional health, your sanity, and your very sense of self. When you lose sleep, you lose more than just rest. You lose the stable ground beneath your feet. Let me know if you want me to continue with how chronic sleep deprivation can lead to long-term brain damage and cognitive decline. When sleep deprivation stretches beyond a few days and becomes chronic, lasting weeks, months, or even years, the consequences start to carve deep, lasting grooves in the architecture of your brain. It's no longer just temporary fog or mood swings. It becomes a slow, insidious breakdown of the very systems that allow you to think, remember, and function as yourself. Imagine your brain as a complex, intricate network of highways and bridges, carrying signals, memories, emotions, and commands. Chronic lack of sleep is like constant wear and tear, creating cracks, potholes, and sometimes full collapses that no amount of caffeine or motivation can fix. One of the key victims of chronic sleep deprivation is the hippocampus, the brain's memory center. This area is responsible for encoding new memories, consolidating short-term experiences into long-term storage, and helping you navigate space and time. When you're well rested, the hippocampus works efficiently, integrating the day's events into your mental map of the world. But when sleep is scarce, the hippocampus begins to shrink and lose function. This means you start forgetting details, struggling to learn new information, and feeling mentally sluggish. Tasks that once were effortless, like recalling a name or remembering where you left your keys, become frustrating challenges. Over time, this impairment may look similar to the cognitive decline seen in aging or neurodegenerative diseases. Sleep also plays a crucial role in clearing the brain of metabolic waste, toxic byproducts generated during the day's neural activity. This cleansing process happens primarily through a system called the glymphatic system, which acts like a waste disposal network. During sleep, fluid flows through the brain, flushing out harmful proteins such as beta amyloid, which are linked to Alzheimer's disease. Without adequate sleep, these toxins accumulate, increasing the risk of developing dementia and other neurodegenerative conditions. Chronic sleep deprivation may thus be a silent contributor to long-term brain disease, silently accelerating processes that would otherwise take decades. Beyond memory and waste clearance, the prefrontal cortex, the seat of executive function, suffers greatly. This region governs decision-making, planning, attention, impulse control, and social behavior. When sleep deprived, your ability to regulate emotions, solve problems, and maintain focus diminishes. Chronic sleep loss causes structural changes here, including reduced grey matter volume and disrupted connectivity with other brain regions. The result is a brain less able to handle complexity, control impulses, and manage stress, increasing the risk of accidents, poor judgment, and mental health issues. Sleep deprivation also alters the brain's reward system, particularly dopamine pathways that regulate motivation and pleasure. This can lead to anhedonia, a reduced ability to feel pleasure, and increased vulnerability to addiction. You might find yourself craving stimulants, sugar, or other substances to artificially boost energy and mood, creating a dangerous cycle of dependency. Physiologically, the chronic lack of sleep disrupts hormone balance, immune function, and metabolic health. Elevated levels of cortisol, the stress hormone, become a constant companion, wreaking havoc on the cardiovascular system and increasing inflammation. Your body's ability to repair itself, from muscle recovery to immune defense, weakens. This combination accelerates aging and increases the risk of chronic diseases such as diabetes, hypertension, and heart disease. Perhaps most profoundly, chronic sleep deprivation affects the brain's plasticity, its remarkable ability to adapt, rewire, and learn throughout life. Sleep is a critical window for synaptic pruning and strengthening, processes that optimize neural circuits. Without enough sleep, this delicate balance falters, leaving the brain cluttered with unnecessary connections, or conversely, losing important ones. Cognitive flexibility, your ability to adapt to new information and environments, suffers. Creativity and problem-solving abilities decline, making even simple tasks feel overwhelming. The mental fog that accompanies chronic sleep deprivation can feel like a thick cloud obscuring your mind. Concentration becomes a Herculean effort. Multitasking is impossible. Working memory, the mental scratchpad you use to hold and manipulate information, shrinks. Communication becomes stilted. Thoughts feel disconnected, and motivation wanes. These deficits don't just affect your personal well-being, but ripple outwards, impairing relationships, career performance, and overall quality of life. Scientists have documented cases where people who have suffered extreme prolonged sleep deprivation exhibit symptoms resembling dementia or other severe cognitive disorders. While some of these effects can improve with prolonged recovery sleep, others may be permanent, underscoring how vital regular, sufficient sleep is for lifelong brain health. It's also worth noting that individual susceptibility varies. Genetics, age, lifestyle, and overall health influence how much damage chronic sleep deprivation inflicts and how well the brain recovers. For example, adolescents and the elderly are particularly vulnerable. This makes protecting sleep across the lifespan a public health priority. All of this paints a sobering picture. Sleep is not a luxury or an optional pause in the day. It's a biological necessity for brain maintenance, cognitive vitality, emotional resilience, and physical health. Ignoring this need sets in motion a cascade of effects that chip away at your very identity and ability to live fully. Understanding the deep and lasting impact of chronic sleep loss should inspire us to treat sleep with the respect it deserves, as a cornerstone of our well-being. Because when you think about it, every dreamless night missed is more than just lost rest. It's lost potential, lost memories, lost health, lost life. Let me know if you'd like to explore next how modern society's habits, technology, and pressures contribute to widespread sleep deprivation, and what we can do to reclaim healthy sleep rhythms. In today's world, sleep is under siege. It's no longer just a natural biological rhythm that the body follows effortlessly, but a battleground where culture, technology, and lifestyle clash, often robbing us of the restorative rest we desperately need. Our ancestors lived in sync with the rising and setting of the sun, guided by natural light and darkness. But modern society has created a 24/7 world, where the boundaries between day and night blur, and the demands of work, entertainment, and connection extend far beyond what our biology evolved to handle. One of the most significant culprits is artificial light. The invention of the electric light bulb revolutionized human life, extending productive hours into the night and enabling endless possibilities. But that light comes at a cost. Our bodies rely on a hormone called melatonin to signal when it's time to sleep. Melatonin production is tightly regulated by exposure to natural light and darkness. When you flood your environment with bright blue-enriched light, like the screens of smartphones, tablets, and computers, especially in the evening, your brain receives conflicting signals. It suppresses melatonin, delaying the onset of sleepiness, and shifts your internal clock, making it harder to fall asleep at a reasonable hour. Smartphones and other devices don't just interfere with melatonin. They demand attention, engaging your brain with constant notifications, social media updates, and the temptation to keep scrolling well past bedtime. This hyper-engagement stimulates the brain's reward pathways, releasing dopamine and making it difficult to disengage. Even when you do put the phone down, the mental stimulation can linger, keeping your mind racing and preventing the relaxation necessary for sleep. Beyond light and screens, modern work culture has transformed sleep into a luxury rather than a necessity. Long hours, shift work, and the pressure to always be on contribute to chronic sleep deprivation. The rise of remote work and flexible schedules, while beneficial in many ways, often blurs the boundaries between work and rest, making it harder to establish consistent sleep routines. Economic pressures, commuting, and juggling family responsibilities further erode the time and energy available for quality sleep. Social and cultural attitudes also play a role. In many societies, sleeping less is glorified as a badge of productivity and toughness. The idea that sleep is for the weak permeates workplaces and social media, encouraging people to sacrifice rest in pursuit of success. This mindset ignores the overwhelming scientific evidence showing that sleep deprivation diminishes performance, creativity, and decision-making, not to mention health. Stress, anxiety, and mental health challenges are often exacerbated by this relentless pace. The very conditions that disrupt sleep, worries about work, finances, relationships, become trapped in a feedback loop where poor sleep worsens mental health, and poor mental health further impairs sleep. This cycle can be incredibly hard to break without deliberate intervention. Fortunately, awareness about the importance of sleep is growing, and with that comes hope. Scientific research has illuminated not only why sleep matters, but how we can protect and improve it. The first step is often setting boundaries around technology. Creating a digital sunset by turning off screens at least an hour before bed helps restore natural melatonin production and calm the mind. Using apps or device settings that filter blue light can reduce some of the disruptive effects, but nothing replaces a break from screens altogether. Establishing a consistent sleep schedule is also critical. Going to bed and waking up at the same time every day, even on weekends, helps stabilize your circadian rhythm, the internal clock that governs sleep and wakefulness. This consistency trains your body to prepare for sleep at predictable times, improving sleep quality and ease of falling asleep. Creating a sleep-friendly environment is another important factor. A cool, dark, and quiet bedroom mimics the natural conditions our bodies evolved to associate with rest. Investing in comfortable bedding, blackout curtains, and soundproofing can make a significant difference. Many people find rituals helpful too. Activities like reading a book, gentle stretching, or meditation signal the brain that it's time to unwind. Physical activity during the day supports healthy sleep, but timing matters. Exercising too close to bedtime can be stimulating, while morning or afternoon workouts promote deeper rest. Nutrition also influences sleep quality. Avoiding caffeine and heavy meals late in the day reduces digestive discomfort and nervous system arousal. Mindfulness and stress reduction techniques play a pivotal role, especially for those whose minds race at night. Practices like deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, or guided imagery can ease anxiety and quiet the chatter of the mind. Some people find benefit in journaling before bed to process worries and create mental space. For shift workers or those with irregular schedules, managing sleep becomes more complex but no less essential. Strategic use of light exposure, naps, and sleep aids under medical guidance can help mitigate disruptions and support cognitive function. On a societal level, there is growing recognition of the need to prioritize sleep health through public policy, education, and workplace reforms. Schools shifting start times later to align with adolescent sleep patterns, employers encouraging flexible work hours, and campaigns raising awareness about sleep's role in safety and productivity are all steps in the right direction. Ultimately, reclaiming healthy sleep rhythms requires a cultural shift, valuing rest as an integral part of life rather than an afterthought. Sleep is not a hurdle to overcome or a luxury to be sacrificed. It's the foundation upon which our minds and bodies thrive. By understanding how modern life interferes with sleep and actively working to counter those influences, you can protect your brain, your health, and your well-being. Because at the end of the day, no amount of hustle can replace the power of truly restorative sleep. Let me know if you want to continue exploring practical tips for improving sleep hygiene or dive deeper into how sleep interacts with learning and memory. Sleep isn't just a passive state of rest. It's an active, dynamic process crucial for learning and memory. When you learn something new, whether it's a complex scientific concept, a musical instrument, or the layout of a new city, your brain immediately begins the process of encoding that information. But encoding is only the first step. Without sleep, the memories formed during the day remain fragile, easily lost, or forgotten. It is during sleep that your brain consolidates, reorganizes, and strengthens these memories, turning fleeting experiences into lasting knowledge. This process of memory consolidation happens primarily during two stages of sleep: slow-wave sleep, deep, non-REM sleep, and REM, rapid eye movement sleep. Each stage plays a unique and complementary role. During slow-wave sleep, the brain replays the day's experiences, strengthening the neural connections associated with newly acquired information. It's like the brain is rehearsing, embedding important details into long-term storage and pruning away irrelevant or redundant data. This stage supports declarative memory, the kind involved in facts, events, and explicit knowledge. REM sleep, on the other hand, is often called the dream stage, but it's also critical for memory integration and creativity. During REM, the brain actively reorganizes and synthesizes information, connecting disparate pieces of knowledge and forming new associations. This process helps you apply what you've learned in novel ways, solve problems creatively, and even come up with insights that eluded you during waking hours. REM sleep supports procedural memory as well. The skills and tasks that become automatic, like riding a bike or playing the piano. When you don't get enough sleep, these vital processes are disrupted. The neural replay that occurs during slow-wave sleep is incomplete, leaving memories unstable and more vulnerable to forgetting. Without sufficient REM sleep, the brain's ability to integrate new information and generate creative solutions is impaired. This is why sleep deprivation not only leads to forgetfulness, but also stifles your capacity to innovate and think flexibly. Studies have shown that students who pull all-nighters or sacrifice sleep after learning new material perform significantly worse on tests and skill assessments than those who get adequate rest. Even a single night of lost sleep can reduce your ability to recall information and apply it effectively. Over time, Chronic sleep deprivation compounds these deficits, leading to a cumulative erosion of cognitive abilities. Sleep also plays a role in emotional memory, how you remember experiences with emotional significance. During sleep, the brain processes and regulates emotional responses, helping you make sense of stressful or traumatic events and reducing the intensity of negative feelings. This emotional regulation is vital for mental health and resilience. Without it, emotional memories can become overwhelming or distorted, contributing to anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder. Furthermore, the brain's plasticity, the capacity to change and adapt in response to experience, is heightened during sleep. This plasticity is fundamental not only for learning new information, but for recovering from brain injuries, adapting to new environments, and maintaining cognitive health as we age. Sleep facilitates synaptic remodeling, the strengthening or weakening of connections between neurons, optimizing the brain's network for efficient functioning. Interestingly, the relationship between sleep and learning is bidirectional. Not only does sleep improve learning, but learning also influences sleep patterns. Engaging in challenging mental activities during the day can increase the intensity and amount of slow-wave sleep, reflecting the brain's increased need for restoration and consolidation. Dreams themselves may play a role in this learning process. Some theories suggest that dreaming provides a virtual reality sandbox where the brain simulates potential scenarios, practices responses, and experiments with creative ideas. While this area of research is still developing, it underscores the complexity and importance of sleep in cognitive function. Ignoring the need for sleep in the learning process is like trying to build a house on a shaky foundation. No matter how much information you gather or how hard you study, without proper sleep, the brain cannot properly organize, store, or utilize what you've learned. This has profound implications beyond academics, affecting skill acquisition, job performance, and even social interactions. For those seeking to optimize their cognitive abilities, embracing good sleep hygiene is essential. Prioritizing sleep after learning new material, avoiding all-nighters, and maintaining regular sleep schedules can dramatically enhance retention and creativity. Integrating short naps, especially after intensive learning sessions, can also provide memory boosts by giving the brain additional opportunities to consolidate information. The interplay between sleep, learning, and memory is a testament to the incredible sophistication of the human brain. It reveals that sleep is not wasted time, but a crucial investment in our cognitive future. When you allow your brain the rest it requires, you don't just recover energy, you build knowledge, sharpen skills, nurture creativity, and sustain mental health. Let me know if you want to explore how different sleep disorders specifically impact learning and memory, or dive deeper into the neuroscience of dreaming and its role in cognition. Sleep is one of the most powerful pillars of health, yet its influence on the immune system is often overlooked. When you think about staying healthy, you might focus on diet, exercise, or hygiene. But sleep is equally critical in defending your body against disease. The immune system is a complex network of cells, tissues, and organs that work together to identify and neutralize pathogens like viruses and bacteria. Sleep plays a fundamental role in regulating this defense system, enhancing its ability to protect you. During sleep, especially during deep, slow-wave stages, your body ramps up the production of cytokines, specialized proteins that act as messengers and regulators in the immune response. Some of these cytokines are pro-inflammatory, meaning they help trigger inflammation, a critical process for fighting infections and healing injuries. Without sufficient sleep, the production and release of these vital cytokines are disrupted, leaving your immune defenses weakened and less coordinated. This impairment means your body is slower to respond to invading microbes and less efficient at repairing damage. Numerous studies have demonstrated that even moderate sleep deprivation can compromise immune function. People who sleep less than 6 hours a night are significantly more likely to catch common illnesses like colds and the flu. In fact, research has shown that when exposed to the rhinovirus, the virus responsible for the common cold, individuals with poor sleep quality or insufficient duration are much more likely to become infected and experience more severe symptoms compared to well-rested counterparts. Sleep deprivation also affects the production and activity of white blood cells, such as natural killer cells and T cells, which are frontline warriors against viruses and tumors. These cells patrol the body, identifying infected or abnormal cells and eliminating them. When sleep is curtailed, their numbers and effectiveness decline, reducing the body's ability to contain infections or detect emerging cancer cells. Beyond acute infections, chronic sleep loss fosters systemic inflammation, a persistent, low-grade inflammatory state that has been linked to a wide array of health problems, including cardiovascular disease, diabetes, obesity, and neurodegenerative disorders. This chronic inflammation stems partly from hormonal imbalances caused by sleep deprivation, including elevated levels of cortisol, the stress hormone, which further suppresses immune function and promotes metabolic disturbances. The relationship between sleep and vaccination responses also underscores sleep's importance in immunity. Studies have found that people who get adequate sleep before and after receiving vaccines develop stronger and more lasting antibody responses, improving protection against diseases. In contrast, sleep-deprived individuals may have blunted responses, making vaccines less effective. In addition to supporting the immune system, sleep facilitates the repair and regeneration of tissues throughout the body. Growth hormone, which plays a key role in tissue repair, muscle growth, and metabolic regulation, is predominantly secreted during deep sleep. When sleep is insufficient, the secretion of this hormone decreases, impairing the body's ability to heal wounds, recover from physical exertion, and maintain metabolic balance. Sleep deprivation also impacts the gut microbiome, the vast community of bacteria and other microorganisms living in your digestive tract. The balance of this microbial ecosystem is essential for immune function and overall health. Poor sleep can disrupt the diversity and composition of the microbiome, contributing to inflammation and increasing susceptibility to metabolic and autoimmune diseases. Mental health and immunity are closely linked as well. Sleep deprivation can exacerbate stress, anxiety, and depression, all of which negatively affect immune responses. Chronic psychological stress, in particular, impairs the body's ability to fight off infections and slows down recovery processes. This complex interplay between sleep and immune health highlights why prolonged sleep deprivation can lead to a vicious cycle. Poor sleep weakens immunity, making you more prone to illness, and illness further disrupts sleep, creating ongoing vulnerability. During illness, sleep demand often increases as the body mobilizes defenses and repairs damage, which is why feeling tired during sickness is actually a protective signal to rest and recover. Understanding the vital role of sleep in immune function reinforces the need to prioritize rest not just for feeling refreshed, but as a key strategy in disease prevention and health maintenance. Ensuring regular, sufficient, and quality sleep supports your body's natural defenses, enhances vaccine efficacy, reduces chronic inflammation, and accelerates healing. For those struggling with sleep difficulties, seeking solutions can have profound benefits beyond improved alertness and mood. From adopting better sleep hygiene practices to addressing underlying sleep disorders, improving sleep quality is a powerful step towards strengthening the immune system and overall well-being. Let me know if you want to explore how specific sleep disorders impact immunity or dive into cutting-edge research on sleep and infectious diseases. Sleep profoundly shapes the landscape of our emotional life and mental health in ways that are often underestimated. When you think about feeling stressed, anxious, or irritable, it's easy to overlook the fundamental role that sleep, or the lack thereof, plays in those experiences. Yet, sleep deprivation is one of the most powerful disruptors of emotional balance and psychological resilience. It alters how the brain processes emotions, regulates mood, and responds to stress, often leaving you more vulnerable to negative feelings and mental health challenges. At the heart of this emotional turmoil is the intricate interplay between sleep and key brain regions responsible for emotion regulation. The amygdala, a small almond-shaped structure deep within the brain, acts as the emotional alarm system. It detects threats, triggers fear and anxiety responses, and helps prioritize what emotions need immediate attention. Normally, the prefrontal cortex, the brain's executive center, works hand in hand with the amygdala to regulate and temper emotional reactions, helping you respond to situations thoughtfully rather than impulsively. But sleep deprivation disrupts this delicate balance. The prefrontal cortex becomes less effective at controlling the amygdala's activity, leading to exaggerated emotional responses, heightened anxiety, and impaired judgment. This imbalance explains why sleep-deprived individuals often experience mood swings, irritability, and increased sensitivity to stress. Situations that would typically seem manageable may feel overwhelming or frustrating. Emotional reactivity increases, making it harder to cope with everyday challenges and straining relationships. Small annoyances can trigger disproportionate reactions, and the ability to empathize or see others' perspectives diminishes. Moreover, sleep deprivation reduces activity in brain circuits that process positive emotions and reward. This leads to anhedonia, a reduced capacity to feel pleasure or enjoyment in activities that normally bring happiness. The resulting emotional blunting can contribute to feelings of apathy, sadness, and social withdrawal, creating a fertile ground for depressive symptoms to develop or worsen. The connection between sleep and mental health extends beyond temporary mood disturbances. Chronic sleep deprivation is a significant risk factor for a range of psychiatric disorders, including anxiety disorders, depression, bipolar disorder, and even psychosis. In fact, sleep disturbances often precede the onset of these conditions, suggesting that poor sleep can be a contributing cause, not just a symptom. For example, insomnia and nightmares commonly occur before depressive episodes, indicating that disrupted sleep may trigger or exacerbate mood disorders. Stress hormones like cortisol also come into play. Sleep deprivation leads to elevated and prolonged cortisol release, which amplifies feelings of stress and anxiety while impairing the brain's ability to recover from stressful experiences. Over time, this hormonal imbalance can wear down emotional resilience making it harder to bounce back from adversity and increasing vulnerability to chronic stress-related conditions. The impact of sleep loss on emotional memory further compounds these challenges. During sleep, the brain processes emotional experiences, helping to integrate them into memory while reducing their emotional charge. This processing allows you to remember important lessons from emotional events without being overwhelmed by them. When sleep is inadequate, emotional memories remain raw and intense, leading to heightened emotional distress and difficulty regulating feelings related to past experiences. In people with post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, disrupted sleep, especially reduced REM sleep and frequent nightmares, exacerbate symptoms, preventing emotional healing. Therapeutic approaches often focus on improving sleep quality as a critical step toward recovery. Sleep deprivation also impairs social cognition, the ability to read facial expressions, interpret social cues, and engage effectively with others. This impairment can lead to misunderstandings, conflicts, and feelings of social isolation, which in turn negatively affect mood and mental health. The relationship between sleep and emotional health is bidirectional. While poor sleep worsens mood, negative emotions and mental health conditions also interfere with sleep quality. Anxiety and rumination can prolong the time it takes to fall asleep, fragment sleep, and reduce restorative sleep stages. This cyclical relationship creates a challenging feedback loop that can be difficult to break without targeted intervention. On a more hopeful note, restoring healthy sleep can dramatically improve emotional well-being. Even a single night of good sleep can reduce emotional reactivity and improve mood. Over time, consistent, quality sleep strengthens the brain's regulatory circuits, enhances stress resilience, and promotes emotional stability. Addressing sleep problems through behavioral strategies, like cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, CBTI, mindfulness practices, and relaxation techniques, can yield profound benefits for both sleep and mental health. Creating a calming bedtime routine, limiting exposure to stress-inducing stimuli before sleep, and managing anxiety through therapeutic support can help break the vicious cycle of sleep loss and emotional distress. Understanding the profound connections between sleep and emotional health reminds us that sleep is not a luxury, but a foundational pillar of psychological well-being. Prioritizing sleep can empower you to navigate life's emotional challenges with greater resilience, clarity, and balance. If you'd like, I can further explore how specific mental health disorders interact with sleep, or share practical tips for using sleep to support emotional recovery and mental wellness. The relationship between sleep and mental health disorders is profoundly interconnected, creating a complex web where each influences and exacerbates the other. Sleep disturbances are not merely a symptom or side effect of psychiatric conditions. They often play a central role in their development, maintenance, and severity. Understanding this bidirectional relationship is crucial for both diagnosis and treatment, as improving sleep can significantly enhance mental health outcomes and vice versa. Mental health disorders such as depression, anxiety disorders, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, and post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, frequently involve disrupted sleep patterns. These disruptions can take many forms, including difficulty falling asleep, frequent awakenings during the night, early morning awakenings, reduced total sleep time, altered sleep architecture, and distressing nightmares. The impact of these disturbances goes beyond tiredness. They affect mood regulation, cognitive function, emotional resilience, and even physical health. In depression, sleep abnormalities are among the most common and distressing symptoms. People with depression often experience insomnia or hypersomnia, either trouble sleeping or excessive sleepiness during the day. Their sleep architecture is altered, with reductions in slow-wave sleep and REM latency changes, meaning they enter REM sleep more quickly and spend more time in it. These changes correlate with the severity of depressive symptoms. Insomnia in depression is not only a symptom, but a predictor of poor prognosis, increased risk of relapse, and suicidality. Treating sleep disturbances in depression through behavioral interventions, pharmacology, or chronotherapy can lead to improvements in mood and overall recovery. Anxiety disorders, including generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorder, and social anxiety disorder, are similarly linked to sleep problems. Excessive worry and hyperarousal make it difficult to initiate and maintain sleep, creating a cycle where poor sleep heightens anxiety symptoms, and anxiety further disrupts sleep. Nighttime panic attacks and nightmares are common, and sleep deprivation intensifies fear responses by hyperactivating the amygdala. Techniques that target sleep, such as relaxation training, cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, and mindfulness, often reduce anxiety symptoms by restoring restful sleep. Bipolar disorder presents a particularly intricate relationship with sleep. Sleep disturbances are both a symptom and a trigger for mood episodes. During manic phases, individuals often experience a decreased need for sleep, sometimes going days with minimal rest, which can exacerbate manic symptoms and lead to risky behaviors. Conversely, depressive phases are characterized by insomnia or hypersomnia. Stabilizing sleep-wake cycles is a cornerstone of bipolar disorder management, as irregular sleep can precipitate mood swings and relapse. Mood stabilizers and psychotherapy that address sleep hygiene help regulate these cycles and improve long-term outcomes. Schizophrenia is also associated with profound sleep disruptions. Patients often report insomnia, fragmented sleep, and alterations in circadian rhythms. These sleep disturbances worsen cognitive deficits, hallucinations, and overall functioning. Studies indicate that sleep architecture changes, including reduced slow-wave and REM sleep, are prevalent. Addressing sleep problems in schizophrenia through medication adjustment, behavioral interventions, and light therapy can enhance cognitive and psychiatric symptoms. Post-traumatic stress disorder illustrates the devastating effects of sleep disturbances on mental health. PTSD is characterized by nightmares, insomnia, and hypervigilance, all of which severely impair sleep quality and quantity. These disturbances perpetuate the cycle of trauma-related distress, impair emotional processing, and reduce the effectiveness of therapeutic interventions. Targeted treatments such as imagery rehearsal therapy, prazosin for nightmares, and trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy aim to restore healthy sleep and improve PTSD symptoms. Beyond these specific disorders, chronic sleep deprivation itself can increase the risk of developing mental health conditions. Experimental sleep restriction in healthy individuals often induces symptoms of depression, anxiety, irritability, and cognitive impairment. Prolonged poor sleep contributes to neurochemical imbalances, inflammation, and alterations in brain structure and function, all of which increase vulnerability to psychiatric disorders. The neurobiology underlying these interactions is complex. Sleep influences neurotransmitters such as serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, and gamma-aminobutyric acid, GABA, all involved in mood regulation and mental health. Disrupted sleep alters these systems, contributing to emotional dysregulation and psychiatric symptoms. Furthermore, sleep deprivation impairs the brain's ability to process emotional memories and regulate stress responses, perpetuating mental health challenges. Effective management of mental health disorders increasingly recognizes the importance of treating sleep disturbances as a fundamental component of care. Integrative approaches, combining psychotherapy, medication, lifestyle modifications, and sleep-focused interventions show the best results. Cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, CBTI, is a frontline, evidence-based treatment that improves sleep and psychiatric symptoms simultaneously. Pharmacological options must be carefully selected to avoid worsening sleep architecture and dependence. In addition to individual treatment, public health initiatives aimed at increasing awareness of sleep's role in mental health are crucial. Encouraging healthy sleep habits, early intervention for sleep problems, and reducing stigma around mental health can create environments that support both restful sleep and psychological well-being. Ultimately, sleep is both a window into mental health and a powerful lever for change. Prioritizing sleep health offers hope for preventing, mitigating, and managing mental health disorders. By appreciating and addressing the profound connections between sleep and psychiatric conditions, individuals and healthcare providers can work together toward more effective, holistic care that honors the central role of sleep in emotional and psychological balance. If you're interested, I can provide insights into emerging research on how novel therapies target sleep to improve mental health, or share practical strategies to optimize sleep in the context of specific psychiatric disorders. Sleep plays a critical role in maintaining and enhancing the brain's plasticity, the remarkable ability of the brain to change, adapt, and reorganize itself in response to experiences, learning, and environmental demands. This neuroplasticity underlies every aspect of our cognitive function, from forming new memories to recovering from brain injury, and it is intricately linked to the brain's capacity to generate new neurons, a process known as neurogenesis. Together, these processes sustain our brain's health and flexibility throughout life, enabling continual growth, adaptation, and resilience. During wakefulness, our brains are constantly exposed to new information, stimuli, and challenges. These experiences require the brain to strengthen some neural connections, weaken others, and sometimes even create entirely new pathways. This dynamic remodeling is the foundation of learning and memory. However, these changes come at a cost. The brain accumulates metabolic waste, experiences synaptic fatigue, and faces the challenge of deciding which connections are important enough to keep and which should be pruned away. Sleep offers a restorative environment where these complex processes can occur efficiently. One of the key theories explaining sleep's role in brain plasticity is the synaptic homeostasis hypothesis. During the day, the brain's synapses, the connections between neurons, become potentiated and strengthened as we learn and process information. This widespread synaptic strengthening is energetically costly and can saturate the brain's capacity, leading to reduced efficiency and impaired signal-to-noise ratios. Sleep provides a crucial period during which the brain downscales or prunes these synapses selectively, reducing overall synaptic strength to a baseline level. This downscaling helps restore cellular energy, maintains synaptic balance, and preserves the brain's ability to learn the next day. It's like tidying up a cluttered workspace to prepare for new tasks. Moreover, sleep, especially deep slow-wave sleep, is a time of heightened neural replay, where the brain rehearses and reactivates the patterns of neural activity associated with recent experiences. This replay strengthens important synapses and solidifies memory traces, supporting long-term consolidation. This balancing act between synaptic strengthening and downscaling during sleep optimizes brain circuits for both stability and plasticity, allowing the brain to remain adaptable without becoming overloaded or inefficient. Neurogenesis, the birth of new neurons, occurs primarily in the hippocampus, a brain region essential for memory formation and spatial navigation. This process continues well into adulthood and is influenced by numerous factors including exercise, stress, learning, and notably, sleep. Research shows that adequate quality sleep promotes neurogenesis, whereas sleep deprivation suppresses it. New neurons are more plastic and contribute to enhanced learning capacity, emotional regulation, and cognitive flexibility. Sleep deprivation impairs both synaptic plasticity and neurogenesis, leading to deficits in learning, memory, and emotional processing. Experimental studies in animals have demonstrated that lack of sleep reduces the expression of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, a protein that supports neuron survival, growth, and synaptic plasticity. Reduced BDNF levels compromise the brain's ability to adapt and repair itself, potentially contributing to cognitive decline and mood disorders. In addition, sleep influences the clearance of neurotoxic waste products via the glymphatic system, a brain-wide network that becomes especially active during sleep. The buildup of waste proteins such as beta amyloid is associated with neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's. By facilitating waste clearance and supporting plasticity, sleep acts as a protective factor against cognitive decline and neurodegeneration. The role of sleep in plasticity is not limited to the hippocampus. Cortical plasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize in response to sensory input or injury, also depends heavily on sleep. For example, after a stroke or traumatic brain injury, sleep supports the reorganization of neural circuits, aiding recovery of lost functions. Disrupted sleep in these contexts can hinder rehabilitation and prolong impairment. As we age, sleep patterns naturally change, often becoming lighter and more fragmented. These changes can diminish the restorative functions of sleep on plasticity and neurogenesis, contributing to age-related cognitive decline. This highlights the importance of promoting good sleep hygiene and interventions to preserve sleep quality in older adults as a strategy to maintain brain health and cognitive function. The fascinating interplay between sleep, plasticity, and neurogenesis reveals that sleep is far from a passive state. It is a vital, active process that sustains the brain's lifelong capacity to learn, adapt, and heal. By prioritizing sleep, we invest in our brain's health and resilience, enhancing memory, creativity, emotional balance, and recovery from injury. If you're interested, I can further explore how specific sleep stages contribute differently to plasticity, or discuss cutting-edge research on how sleep interventions might promote brain repair in neurological diseases. Sleep is an essential cornerstone of physical health, deeply intertwined with the body's ability to maintain and regulate its physiological systems. The consequences of sleep deprivation extend far beyond mere fatigue. They manifest in profound disruptions to metabolic processes, cardiovascular function, endocrine regulation, and overall longevity. Understanding these wide-ranging effects reveals why prioritizing adequate sleep is crucial not only for feeling rested, but for preserving the body's long-term health and vitality. One of the most striking impacts of insufficient sleep is its effect on metabolism and weight regulation. Sleep deprivation alters the balance of hormones that control appetite, energy expenditure, and glucose metabolism. For instance, levels of ghrelin, a hormone that stimulates hunger, increase, while leptin, the hormone responsible for signaling satiety, decreases when sleep is restricted. This hormonal imbalance leads to increased hunger and cravings, particularly for high-calorie, carbohydrate-rich foods, which can contribute to overeating and weight gain. Moreover, sleep loss impairs insulin sensitivity, raising the risk of developing type 2 diabetes. This metabolic dysregulation creates a dangerous feedback loop where poor sleep contributes to obesity and metabolic syndrome, which in turn further disrupt sleep quality. Cardiovascular health is another domain profoundly influenced by sleep. Chronic sleep deprivation elevates blood pressure and increases the risk of hypertension, one of the leading risk factors for heart disease and stroke. The mechanisms underlying this connection include heightened sympathetic nervous system activity, elevated levels of stress hormones such as cortisol, and increased systemic inflammation. Sleep loss also impairs endothelial function, which is vital for maintaining the flexibility and health of blood vessels. Over time, these changes promote the development of atherosclerosis, where plaques build up in the arteries, narrowing them and increasing the risk of heart attacks. In addition to these cardiovascular effects, insufficient sleep contributes to systemic inflammation, a low-grade but chronic activation of the immune system that plays a role in many chronic diseases. Elevated levels of inflammatory markers like C-reactive protein and interleukin-6 are commonly observed in people with poor sleep. This persistent inflammatory state accelerates tissue damage and underlies the progression of conditions such as arthritis, neurodegenerative diseases, and certain cancers. The endocrine system, responsible for hormone production and regulation, is also highly sensitive to sleep patterns. Disrupted sleep interferes with the secretion of growth hormone, which is primarily released during deep sleep stages and is critical for tissue repair, muscle growth, and metabolic regulation. A deficiency in growth hormone due to poor sleep impairs the body's ability to heal wounds, build muscle, and maintain a healthy metabolism. Moreover, sleep deprivation can affect the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal (HPA) axis, leading to dysregulated cortisol secretion. Chronic elevation of cortisol not only promotes inflammation, but also contributes to insulin resistance, abdominal fat accumulation, and mood disorders. Beyond these metabolic and hormonal effects, sleep deprivation has a substantial impact on longevity and overall mortality risk. Large-scale epidemiological studies consistently show that both short and excessively long sleep durations are associated with increased mortality risk, often due to cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and other chronic conditions. While the optimal amount of sleep can vary by individual, consistently getting less than 6 hours or more than 9 hours per night is linked to poorer health outcomes and decreased lifespan. Physical recovery and immune defense are also compromised by lack of sleep. Muscle repair, protein synthesis, and recovery from exercise occur predominantly during sleep, particularly during slow-wave sleep. Athletes and physically active individuals who do not get enough sleep experience reduced performance, slower recovery, and higher injury risk. Additionally, as previously discussed, sleep deprivation weakens the immune system, making the body more susceptible to infections and impairing its ability to fight off pathogens effectively. Sleep's role in regulating body temperature and maintaining circadian rhythms further underscores its importance for physical health. Disrupted sleep patterns can lead to misalignment of the body's internal clock with environmental cues, which has been linked to increased risks of metabolic syndrome, cardiovascular disease, and certain cancers, particularly in shift workers and those with irregular sleep schedules. Moreover, the gut microbiome, a critical player in digestion, immunity, and overall health, is influenced by sleep quality and duration. Sleep deprivation alters the composition and diversity of gut bacteria, promoting an imbalance known as dysbiosis, which can exacerbate inflammation and metabolic disturbances. Considering these extensive and interconnected effects, it becomes clear that sleep is not a passive state, but a vital period during which the body conducts essential maintenance and repair. Prioritizing sufficient, high-quality sleep is one of the most effective strategies to support physical health, prevent chronic disease, and enhance quality of life. If you would like, I can provide additional details on how specific sleep disorders impact physical health, or offer guidance on lifestyle changes to optimize sleep and improve overall well-being. Sleep has a profound impact on the immune system, serving as a crucial pillar in maintaining the body's defenses against infection, inflammation, and disease. When we consider immunity, we often think about vaccines, hand washing, or exposure to pathogens, but sleep is equally fundamental, often overlooked, yet absolutely vital. The complex interplay between sleep and immune function underscores why adequate quality sleep is indispensable for both immediate and long-term health. During sleep, the immune system enters a highly active and organized state that supports the production, regulation, and coordination of immune cells and molecules. This period allows the body to effectively detect and respond to threats such as viruses, bacteria, and other harmful agents. Several components of immunity, both innate and adaptive, are influenced by sleep patterns, making sleep a key modulator of immune readiness and recovery. One of the key processes enhanced by sleep is the production of cytokines, which are small proteins that act as messengers between immune cells. Certain cytokines, known as pro-inflammatory cytokines, increase during sleep, particularly during deep non-REM sleep. These cytokines help initiate an immune response when needed and also facilitate tissue repair and healing. At the same time, sleep helps balance inflammatory responses to avoid excessive inflammation that can damage tissues. This finely tuned regulation is essential because chronic inflammation is linked to numerous diseases, including autoimmune disorders, cardiovascular disease, and cancer. Sleep also influences the activity and efficiency of various immune cells, including natural killer NK cells, T cells, and B cells. NK cells, which are part of the innate immune system, play a critical role in the early defense against viruses and tumor cells. Studies show that sleep deprivation reduces NK cell activity, diminishing the body's ability to respond to infections and malignancies. Similarly, T cells, which are central to the adaptive immune response, rely on sleep for optimal function. Sleep promotes the proliferation and differentiation of T cells, enhancing the body's capacity to mount a targeted defense against specific pathogens. B cells, responsible for producing antibodies, also benefit from the restorative effects of sleep, which can improve vaccine responses and long-term immunity. The importance of sleep for immune memory, the process by which the immune system remembers past infections or vaccinations and mounts faster responses upon re-exposure, cannot be overstated. Sleep following vaccination has been shown to enhance the production of antibodies and the strength of the immune response. Conversely, insufficient sleep around the time of vaccination can reduce vaccine efficacy, highlighting sleep's role in public health and disease prevention. When sleep is inadequate or fragmented, the immune system becomes dysregulated. This dysregulation leads to a state of chronic low-grade inflammation, which paradoxically impairs the body's ability to fight infections effectively. People who experience sleep deprivation are more susceptible to common illnesses such as colds and the flu and take longer to recover. Moreover, sleep loss can exacerbate autoimmune diseases, where the immune system mistakenly attacks the body's own tissues by promoting pro-inflammatory states. Emerging research also connects sleep and immunity to mental health, metabolic regulation, and aging. Poor sleep weakens immune defenses while simultaneously increasing stress hormones and inflammatory markers, creating a vicious cycle that contributes to chronic disease and accelerated aging. In older adults who naturally experience changes in sleep architecture, this immune decline can lead to higher infection rates and reduced vaccine responsiveness. Sleep's role in immune surveillance, monitoring and eliminating cancer cells, is an exciting and growing area of research. Animal studies suggest that chronic sleep deprivation can impair the immune system's ability to detect and destroy malignant cells, potentially increasing cancer risk. While human studies are still developing, these findings highlight the importance of sleep for long-term health and disease prevention. The timing and quality of sleep also matter. Circadian rhythms, the body's internal clock regulating sleep-wake cycles and numerous physiological processes, coordinate immune functions. Disruptions to circadian rhythms, such as those caused by shift work or jet lag, can impair immune responses and increase vulnerability to infection and chronic diseases. Maintaining regular sleep patterns supports immune system synchronization and optimal functioning. In summary, sleep is a dynamic and essential process that actively supports immune function at multiple levels. From enhancing immune cell activity and cytokine production to improving vaccine responses and regulating inflammation, sleep is a cornerstone of immune health. Prioritizing consistent, restorative sleep is a powerful and natural way to bolster the immune system's capacity to protect the body, promote healing, and maintain long-term health. If you would like, I can elaborate further on how specific sleep disorders impact immunity, or share practical tips to optimize sleep for immune health. The relationship between sleep and emotional regulation is intricate and profound, impacting how we experience, process, and respond to the full spectrum of human emotions. Sleep is not simply a passive state of rest, but an active period during which the brain processes emotional information, consolidates emotional memories, and restores the neural circuits responsible for mood stability and resilience. Without sufficient quality sleep, the delicate balance of emotional regulation becomes disrupted, often leading to heightened emotional reactivity, impaired judgment, and increased vulnerability to mental health disorders. Emotional regulation involves the ability to manage and respond to emotional experiences in a way that is adaptive and appropriate to the context. It includes recognizing emotions, modulating their intensity, and expressing them constructively. Sleep plays a critical role in supporting these functions through its effects on various brain regions and neurotransmitter systems involved in emotion. The prefrontal cortex, which governs executive functions like decision-making and impulse control, works in tandem with the amygdala, the brain's emotional alarm system that detects threats and generates emotional responses. During sleep, particularly during REM, rapid eye movement sleep, these brain regions engage in a dynamic process that recalibrates emotional responses and integrates emotional memories. When we experience emotional events during the day, the brain encodes these experiences, but requires sleep to properly process and integrate them into long-term memory. REM sleep, characterized by vivid dreaming and intense brain activity, is especially important for this emotional memory consolidation. During REM, the amygdala and hippocampus, key structures for emotion and memory, interact to modulate the emotional tone of memories. This process helps reduce the emotional charge of negative experiences, allowing us to recall them without being overwhelmed by distress. Essentially, sleep acts as a natural therapy session, helping us file away difficult emotions and maintain emotional balance. Conversely, when sleep is disrupted or insufficient, this emotional processing is impaired. Studies consistently show that sleep deprivation leads to increased amygdala reactivity, meaning the brain becomes more sensitive to negative stimuli and perceived threats. This heightened emotional reactivity manifests as irritability, mood swings, anxiety, and difficulty managing stress. At the same time, the prefrontal cortex's ability to regulate these intense emotional responses is weakened, resulting in poorer impulse control and judgment. This combination creates a perfect storm where emotions can feel overwhelming and out of control. The impact of poor sleep on emotional regulation extends beyond daily mood fluctuations to influence the risk and course of mental health disorders. Insomnia and other sleep disturbances are not only symptoms of depression and anxiety, but also significant contributing factors. Chronic sleep problems increase the likelihood of developing these disorders and exacerbate their severity. For example, individuals with persistent insomnia are more prone to depressive episodes, while those with anxiety disorders often experience heightened worry and panic attacks when sleep deprived. Improving sleep quality is therefore a critical component of effective treatment for emotional and psychiatric conditions. Furthermore, sleep affects our capacity for emotional empathy and social interactions. Lack of sleep reduces our ability to accurately interpret social cues and respond empathetically to others. This can impair relationships and social functioning, creating additional stress and emotional strain. In professional and personal contexts, this diminished social emotional competence can lead to misunderstandings, conflicts, and isolation. Beyond its immediate effects on mood and social functioning, sleep supports the longer-term development of emotional resilience, the ability to bounce back from adversity and maintain psychological well-being in the face of stress. By facilitating the processing of emotional memories and restoring neural circuits, sleep helps build the emotional resources needed to cope with life's challenges. Without sufficient sleep, individuals are more vulnerable to stress and less able to recover from emotional setbacks. Neurochemical changes during sleep also contribute to emotional regulation. Sleep modulates levels of neurotransmitters such as serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine, which play key roles in mood and motivation. Disruptions in these systems due to sleep loss contribute to feelings of depression, anxiety, and emotional instability. Moreover, the hormonal effects of sleep deprivation, including elevated cortisol levels, further exacerbate stress responses and emotional dysregulation. Children and adolescents are particularly sensitive to the effects of sleep on emotional regulation. During development, sleep supports the maturation of brain circuits involved in emotion control, social behavior, and stress management. Insufficient sleep in young people is linked to increased risk of mood disorders, behavioral problems, and impaired academic performance. Establishing healthy sleep habits early in life is essential for emotional and psychological development. In summary, sleep is a foundational element for healthy emotional regulation. It enables the brain to process and integrate emotional experiences, maintain mood stability, and build resilience. Without adequate sleep, emotional responses become heightened, judgment is impaired, and vulnerability to mental health issues increases. Prioritizing restorative sleep is therefore not only vital for physical health, but is also essential for emotional balance and psychological well-being. If you want, I can also share strategies to improve sleep for better emotional health, or explore how specific sleep disorders disrupt emotional regulation in more detail. Sleep is fundamental to mental health, serving as a cornerstone for emotional well-being, cognitive function, and overall psychological resilience. The connection between sleep and mental health is bidirectional and complex. Poor sleep can contribute to the development and worsening of mental health disorders, while many psychiatric conditions also disrupt sleep. Understanding this intricate relationship reveals why addressing sleep problems is critical for preventing, managing, and recovering from mental illness. Mental health disorders such as depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, and post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, frequently involve sleep disturbances as core symptoms. Insomnia, characterized by difficulty falling asleep, staying asleep, or non-restorative sleep, is one of the most common complaints among individuals with mental illness. However, beyond being a symptom, sleep problems often precede the onset of psychiatric conditions, suggesting that disrupted sleep can be a causal factor. For example, longitudinal studies have shown that chronic insomnia increases the risk of developing depression and anxiety disorders, highlighting sleep as a potential early warning sign and target for intervention. The mechanisms linking sleep and mental health are multifaceted, involving neurobiological, psychological, and behavioral factors. Neurochemically, sleep regulates neurotransmitters such as serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine, which influence mood, motivation, and anxiety. Disruptions in sleep disturb these systems, leading to mood dysregulation and increased emotional reactivity. Sleep loss also dysregulates the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal HPA axis, resulting in elevated stress hormones like cortisol, which further exacerbate anxiety and depressive symptoms. Sleep disturbances impair cognitive functions critical to mental health, including attention, memory, and executive function. When sleep is insufficient or fragmented, the brain struggles to regulate emotions effectively, making individuals more susceptible to negative thought patterns, rumination, and heightened stress responses. This cognitive impairment can create a vicious cycle where poor sleep worsens mental health symptoms, which in turn further disrupt sleep. In bipolar disorder, sleep plays a particularly pivotal role. Changes in sleep patterns often herald the onset of manic or depressive episodes. Mania is frequently preceded by reduced need for sleep, while depressive episodes are associated with hypersomnia or insomnia. Maintaining stable sleep routines is therefore a crucial component of managing bipolar disorder and preventing mood swings. Schizophrenia is also closely linked to sleep abnormalities. Individuals with schizophrenia commonly experience irregular sleep-wake cycles, insomnia, and fragmented sleep, which contribute to cognitive deficits and exacerbate psychotic symptoms. Improving sleep quality in these patients has shown promise in alleviating symptom severity and enhancing quality of life. Post-traumatic stress disorder involves nightmares, insomnia, and hyperarousal, all of which severely disrupt restorative sleep. Poor sleep impairs emotional processing of traumatic memories, hindering recovery and increasing vulnerability to chronic PTSD. Emerging therapies targeting sleep disturbances, such as imagery rehearsal therapy for nightmares, are showing encouraging results in improving both sleep and PTSD symptoms. The role of sleep in mental health extends to neurodevelopmental disorders, such as attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, and autism spectrum disorder, ASD. Sleep problems are common in these populations and can exacerbate behavioral issues, attention difficulties, and social challenges. Addressing sleep disturbances is an important part of comprehensive care for children and adults with these conditions. Furthermore, sleep deprivation and disruption affect brain plasticity and neurogenesis, processes essential for learning, memory, and mood regulation. Chronic poor sleep may contribute to structural and functional brain changes associated with mental illness. This connection underscores the importance of sleep for maintaining brain health and psychological resilience. Effective treatment of mental health disorders often requires addressing co-occurring sleep problems. Cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, CBTI, is a widely validated, non-pharmacological approach that improves sleep and has demonstrated benefits for depression and anxiety symptoms. Pharmacological treatments must be carefully managed, as some psychiatric medications can affect sleep architecture either positively or negatively. Lifestyle factors such as stress management, regular exercise, consistent sleep schedules, and avoiding stimulants before bedtime also play crucial roles in promoting healthy sleep and mental well-being. Public health initiatives increasingly recognize sleep as a modifiable factor to improve population mental health. In summary, sleep is a foundational pillar of mental health, influencing mood regulation, cognitive function, stress resilience, and the course of psychiatric disorders. Disrupted sleep is both a symptom and a driver of mental illness, making it a critical target for prevention and treatment. Prioritizing healthy sleep habits and effectively addressing sleep disorders can significantly enhance mental health outcomes and overall quality of life. If you would like, I can provide more information on specific therapeutic approaches to improve sleep in mental health conditions, or discuss how emerging research is uncovering new links between sleep and psychiatric disorders. Sleep is an extraordinary and mysterious aspect of human biology that has fascinated scientists, philosophers, and lay people alike for centuries. Despite decades of research, many fundamental questions about why we sleep and how it evolved remain only partially answered. Delving into the evolutionary origins of sleep reveals how this seemingly vulnerable and costly behavior became a universal necessity across almost all animal species. Exploring these origins helps us appreciate the deep biological roots of sleep and why its preservation is essential for survival and well-being. Sleep is not a recent development in the animal kingdom. From simple organisms like jellyfish and fruit flies to complex mammals and birds, sleep or sleep-like states are observed across a vast range of species. This widespread presence suggests that sleep serves core, conserved functions vital enough to have been maintained throughout hundreds of millions of years of evolution. At its core, sleep appears to be a biological imperative that outweighs the risks and costs associated with losing consciousness and reduced awareness of the environment. One of the earliest theories about the evolution of sleep centers on energy conservation. By entering a state of reduced metabolic activity and lowered body temperature during sleep, animals can conserve energy during periods when foraging or hunting is less efficient or more dangerous. This energy-saving hypothesis explains why many animals exhibit distinct sleep patterns aligned with environmental cycles, such as diurnal or nocturnal activity. However, energy conservation alone cannot fully explain the complexity of sleep, especially given that some animals remain immobile but alert during resting periods without experiencing the same restorative benefits as sleep. Another fundamental evolutionary role of sleep involves neural restoration and brain plasticity. The brain is a highly energy-demanding organ, and its continuous activity generates metabolic waste products and oxidative stress. Sleep provides a unique window for the brain to engage in restorative processes, including clearing toxins through the glymphatic system, a waste clearance pathway that becomes especially active during sleep. This detoxification likely evolved as a crucial survival mechanism to maintain brain health and cognitive function. Sleep also facilitates learning and memory consolidation, which are essential for adapting to changing environments. Across species, sleep enhances the brain's ability to encode, store, and integrate new information. From birds rehearsing songs during sleep to mammals solidifying spatial memories, the cognitive benefits of sleep confer evolutionary advantages by improving problem solving, predator avoidance, and social behaviors. This cognitive function may have been a driving force behind the evolution of complex sleep architecture, including REM sleep, which is associated with vivid dreaming and emotional processing. Predation risk and ecological pressures have further shaped sleep behaviors. Animals have evolved diverse sleep strategies to balance the need for rest with the imperative of avoiding predators. Some species sleep in short bursts or unihemispheric sleep, where one half of the brain sleeps while the other remains alert, allowing them to detect threats. Others seek safe environments or adopt social sleeping arrangements to reduce vulnerability. These adaptations highlight the evolutionary trade-offs involved in sleep, demonstrating its critical role despite potential dangers. The evolution of sleep stages, including REM and non-REM sleep, reflects increasing complexity in brain function and organismal needs. REM sleep, characterized by rapid eye movements and brain activity patterns similar to wakefulness, is found primarily in mammals and birds, suggesting it evolved later than more primitive sleep states. Its functions are still being unraveled, but include emotional regulation, neural development, and memory integration, pointing to sophisticated neural processes refined by evolution. Sleep has also influenced the evolution of circadian rhythms, the internal biological clocks that regulate sleep-wake cycles in alignment with the 24-hour day-night cycle. These rhythms optimize physiological processes and behavior to environmental conditions, enhancing survival and reproductive success. The interplay between sleep and circadian timing systems illustrates a co-evolutionary process that finely tunes organisms' lives to the Earth's rotation. In humans, the evolutionary perspective on sleep offers insights into modern sleep challenges. Our ancestors faced different environmental demands, often sleeping in natural settings with irregular patterns shaped by safety and resource availability. The advent of artificial lighting, technology, and societal structures has dramatically altered sleep patterns, sometimes clashing with deeply ingrained biological rhythms. Understanding sleep's evolutionary origins helps contextualize why modern lifestyles can disrupt sleep and lead to health problems. Finally, sleep's evolution underscores its indispensability. The fact that virtually all animals engage in some form of sleep or rest, despite its costs, signals its essential role in survival. Sleep deprivation experiments across species consistently demonstrate severe cognitive, physiological, and behavioral impairments, highlighting the universal necessity of sleep. By exploring the evolutionary roots of sleep, we gain a deeper appreciation of its complex functions and the delicate balance organisms maintain to benefit from rest while navigating environmental challenges. This perspective not only enriches scientific understanding, but also informs approaches to improving sleep health in our rapidly changing world. If you wish, I can elaborate further on specific evolutionary adaptations of sleep in certain species, or discuss how evolutionary biology informs modern sleep medicine and health strategies.